The tension was palpable from the moment Mendeecees walked onto the set. Cameras flashed, fans held their breath, and whispers spread like wildfire because everyone knew this wasn't going to be a typical reunion. For months, rumors had swirled about Kirk and Rasheeda, about hidden resentments, unspoken betrayals, and the cracks in a relationship that once seemed untouchable. But no one expected Mendeecees himself to step forward and drop the truth that would leave the audience completely stunned. "Rasheeda deserves better," he said, his voice steady but loaded with emotion. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Shock rippled through the studio. Fans erupted on social media, replaying that moment over and over, analyzing every nuance, every pause. Some cheered, some cried, and others were simply speechless. The room felt electric, like every secret, every tension, every long-standing question had finally collided into one explosive revelation. Emotions ran high as the cameras captured Rasheeda's reaction. You could see it in her eyes, the mix of relief, disbelief, and maybe even a hint of vindication. She had weathered criticism, rumors, and the relentless spotlight for years, always standing strong, always holding herself together. But now, hearing those words from someone so close, someone who understood the struggles and the sacrifices, it was like a weight she hadn't realized she'd been carrying was finally lifted. Meanwhile, Kirk sat across the room, visibly shaken, his jaw tightened, and the tension in his shoulders betrayed what he was trying to hide. The family was left divided. Friends whispered in corners, fans flooded comment sections, and the hosts struggled to maintain control as the drama unfolded in real time. You could feel it, the raw, unfiltered intensity of a story that was far from over. And just when you thought the moment had peaked, Mendeecees leaned in, his tone dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I've seen too much, and I won't stay silent anymore. Rasheeda deserves happiness that Kirk can't give her." The words sent shockwaves through the audience, leaving everyone wondering what would happen next. Who would stand by whom? Would Kirk fight back or crumble under the pressure? And most importantly, what secrets had finally come to light that could change everything? Fans are shocked, emotions ran high, and the internet is already buzzing with theories. This is the kind of revelation that doesn't just make headlines, it sets off debates, arguments, and speculation that could last for weeks. Every glance, every word, every pause mattered in that moment, and it was clear, this was a turning point. A moment that could redefine relationships, challenge loyalties, and spark confrontations nobody saw coming. The stage was set, the players were in place, and the drama had only just begun. The question now is, what happens after the cameras stop rolling? Will Rasheeda finally claim the peace and respect she's been denied? Will Kirk fight to prove himself? Will he vanish under the weight of truth? And what shocking twists are still waiting behind closed doors? One thing is certain, this revelation is only the beginning, and the story about to unfold is bigger, messier, and far more dramatic than anyone could have imagined. Fans, grab your popcorn, because the chaos, the betrayal, and the heartbreak are just starting, and no one is safe from the storm that's about to hit. The tension in the studio was suffocating as Mendeecees took a deep breath, looking directly into the camera before shifting his gaze toward Rasheeda. "I've been quiet for too long," he began, voice heavy with emotion. The audience leaned forward instinctively, sensing the gravity of what was about to unfold. Kirk, sitting stiffly across the room, avoided eye contact, his hands clasped so tightly that his knuckles turned white. The air felt charged with anticipation, and even the crew seemed frozen, unsure whether to speak or remain silent as the drama swelled around them. Mendeecees continued, his tone measured but undeniable. "Rasheeda deserves better than this, better than Kirk. She has carried so much weight on her shoulders, dealt with so many sleepless nights, and shown patience that most people wouldn't even comprehend. And I cannot stay silent anymore because it's clear to me, and to everyone who truly knows her, that she deserves happiness, real happiness, not just the image of it." His words hit the room like a hammer. You could see it in Rasheeda's eyes, the mix of surprise and validation, as if every whispered doubt, every insult, every public criticism she had endured was being vindicated in that single moment. Fans watching from home were going wild, flooding comment sections with emojis of shock, heartbreak, and relief, dissecting every micro-expression on the faces of the stars. Kirk shifted in his seat, a flush rising in his cheeks, his pride visibly wounded, and yet his mouth remained tightly shut. Rasheeda's best friend, sitting nearby, leaned in and whispered under her breath, "She's finally hearing what we've known all along." The tension between loyalty and heartbreak was tangible. Kirk's silence began to crack under the weight of accusation, his voice a low, defensive rumble as he finally spoke up. Mendeecees, that's not fair. You don't know what I've been doing, what I've been trying to fix. His words trembled slightly, betraying the bravado he was attempting to maintain. Mendeecees shook his head slowly, a look of quiet disappointment etched across his face. I've seen everything, Kirk. And what I've seen is that Rasheeda has been holding more than her share of pain. You can't deny it anymore. Fans can see it, family can see it, and deep down, even you know it's true. The cameras captured every reaction, Kirk's subtle flinch, Rasheeda's tight-lipped nod, the crew exchanging uneasy glances. The drama escalated as Mendeecees recounted specific moments that had gone largely unnoticed by the public. He spoke of nights when Rasheeda stayed up worrying about Kirk's choices, of the times she had sacrificed her own needs to maintain a fragile peace, of conversations that had ended in frustration and tears because the emotional gap between them had become unbridgeable. She's given more than she should have had to, he said, his voice steady but emotional. And she's been silenced too long by appearances, by the fear of confrontation, by people who think love is measured in tolerance instead of respect. Rasheeda's eyes glistened as she fought back tears, emotions she had suppressed for years now, spilling over in small, imperceptible tremors. Kirk's hands curled into fists, his jaw tightening as he absorbed each word. The audience at home erupted in reaction, and the studio itself seemed to vibrate with the intensity of the moment. Whispers spread like wildfire. Was this the beginning of a confrontation that could finally expose everything? Family members, who had previously tried to mediate between the couple, began voicing their opinions. She has suffered enough, one sister whispered under her breath, catching the camera's attention. He doesn't understand the sacrifices she's made, the compromises she's forced to swallow every single day. Fans instantly picked up on these statements, reposting snippets across social media, sparking heated debates about loyalty, responsibility, and what it truly means to be supportive in a relationship. The tension between Kirk and Mendeecees reached its peak as the older man leaned forward, voice lowering but intensity rising. Kirk, you have potential, but potential isn't enough. Rasheeda has been patient, she's been forgiving, but she's not invisible. And if you can't step up, if you can't recognize her worth, then the fault lies with you. Kirk's lips parted, ready to argue, but Mendeecees cut him off. No, not today. Today, it's about Rasheeda. Today, it's about what she deserves. And she deserves someone who can see her, who can honor her, who can make her feel whole, not just present. The crowd murmured, some nodding in agreement, others audibly gasping at the directness of the confrontation. As the conversation unfolded, more explosive revelations began surfacing. Mendeecees recounted a series of private conversations with Rasheeda that had never been made public. Moments when she confided fears, doubts, and frustrations that were brushed aside in public appearances. She has carried burdens alone that should have been shared, he said, and she's never asked for anything more than respect. Is that too much? Rasheeda's eyes softened, her usual composure wavering. Even fans who had sided with Kirk were left questioning their assumptions, recognizing the humanity in Rasheeda's struggle. The studio audience's reaction mirrored the online chaos, cameras capturing gasps, murmurs, and occasional applause. The tension was suffocating, and the line between public spectacle and private revelation blurred completely. Kirk finally found his voice again, though it was tinged with anger and defensiveness. You're twisting this, he said sharply. I've done my best. I've been trying to, but he faltered as Mendeecees' gaze pinned him in place. Trying isn't enough, Mendeecees interrupted, voice firm, eyes burning with conviction. Actions speak louder than excuses, and your actions haven't matched what she deserves. The weight of truth was palpable. Kirk's attempts at explanation fell flat as Rasheeda, for the first time in years, allowed herself to breathe, to feel supported, to know that someone close finally acknowledged her pain. The audience could feel it, the raw intensity of emotion, the fracture of old loyalties, the silent agreement that a turning point had arrived. Unexpectedly, one of Rasheeda's cousins, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward to add another layer to the drama. We've seen how much you've taken for granted, she said to Kirk, voice steady but pointed. Rasheeda has given everything, and yet it feels like it's never enough for you. Maybe it's time to ask yourself if you're ready to truly honor her, or if this is the end of the road. The words hung heavy in the air, a catalyst that sent fans into a frenzy across social media platforms. Comments poured in. She deserves better. Finally, someone said it. Kirk can't handle her strength. The narrative was exploding beyond the studio, becoming a cultural moment that fans could not stop discussing. Even as the confrontation intensified, small moments of tenderness and vulnerability emerged. Rasheeda glanced at Mendeecees, a silent thank you in her eyes. acknowledging the courage it took for him to speak so bluntly, to defend her in a room full of tension and conflicting loyalties. Kirk, meanwhile, struggled with a mix of anger, guilt, and denial, unable to reconcile his perspective with the mounting evidence of Rasheeda's unacknowledged struggles. I didn't realize, he muttered under his breath, almost to himself, a fleeting crack in the armor he had built around his ego. The audience sensed it instantly. This was the human moment amid the spectacle, a glimpse into the raw truth behind the headlines, a reminder that the people on the screen were more than their public personas. The drama continued to escalate as Mendeecees began recounting the ripple effects of the strained relationship on their circle of friends and family. Longtime allies who had stayed silent began to voice their support, recounting stories of sacrifices, emotional labor, and late-night tears that Rasheeda had endured while attempting to maintain a semblance of normalcy. Fans watching at home were riveted, unable to tear their eyes away from the unfolding chaos. The narrative of hidden struggles, unrecognized effort, and the emotional toll of public scrutiny painted a portrait of Rasheeda that was both relatable and heartbreaking. Kirk's attempts to justify himself grew increasingly frantic, his voice rising as the room's tension thickened. "I've tried to be there," he shouted, but the words sounded hollow in the face of accumulated evidence, the weight of the truths Mendeecees had laid bare. Meanwhile, Rasheeda's expressions shifted subtly, the camera capturing every flicker of emotion, relief, vindication, lingering sadness, and the faintest glimmer of hope. The audience responded immediately, sensing that this was a pivotal moment that could redefine the dynamics of the relationship, alter loyalties, and ignite debates that would persist far beyond the studio walls. Friends exchanged glances, some offering support, others choosing silence, understanding that every word and gesture was now amplified under the intense scrutiny of cameras and millions of fans. Social media exploded with commentary, hashtags trending instantly, and the drama transcended the confines of reality television, becoming a global conversation about respect, emotional labor, and the true meaning of partnership. Even as the narrative reached its peak, Mendeecees leaned in, voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that made fans at home lean closer. "There are things that haven't been said, moments that haven't been shared, and if we're honest, they reveal a truth nobody wants to confront. Rasheeda has been the backbone of this relationship, and Kirk has been blind to it." The words hit hard, reverberating through the studio, leaving Kirk visibly shaken. He opened his mouth, closed it, and finally muttered, I guess I see now," though the tone lacked conviction, revealing an internal struggle that only intensified the drama. Fans were in uproar, emotions ran high, and the social media storm was relentless. Comment sections overflowed with speculation, memes, and heartfelt messages of support for Rasheeda, while others debated Kirk's capacity to change. Some defending him, others condemning him outright. The studio itself became a microcosm of this chaos, the energy so thick that it felt almost tangible. Every glance and gesture magnified, every pause loaded with meaning. Even crew members, who typically remained neutral, exchanged glances that spoke volumes about the intensity of the moment. As Mendeecees continued, he recalled moments of intervention. Times he had tried to guide Kirk, to show him the importance of valuing Rasheeda's emotional labor. "I've spoken to him privately, tried to make him understand. But there's only so much a person can endure in silence," he explained. The weight of these revelations settled over the room like a storm cloud. The audience leaning in, captivated by the narrative of struggle, revelation, and unflinching honesty. Rasheeda's hands trembled slightly, a small but telling sign of the emotional toll of years of resilience now meeting the catharsis of public acknowledgement. Kirk, now visibly unsteady, attempted to regain composure. "Maybe I've been blind," he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't understand what she needed from me." The confession, small as it was, didn't seem to immediately alleviate the tension. Mendeecees, unwavering, responded, "Understanding isn't enough, Kirk. Recognition, respect, and action, those are the things that matter. Rasheeda has shown you what she can give, but can you match it?" The silence that followed was deafening, each word reverberating like a verdict. A reckoning, a mirror reflecting decades of misaligned expectations and emotional neglect. The drama escalated further as other family members joined the conversation, voices rising and falling in a cacophony of truth, opinion, and raw emotion. The audience watched, rapt, as stories of loyalty, sacrifice, miscommunication, and heartbreak unfolded like a tapestry of real human experience intertwined with the spectacle of reality television. Fans dissected each interaction, each glance, each subtle expression, creating a shared narrative that extended far beyond the confines of the studio, spilling into homes, phones, and social media feeds worldwide. Tears threatened Rasheeda's composure as she finally spoke. "I've tried so hard to make this work," she admitted, voice quivering yet resolute. "I've given everything I could, but sometimes, love isn't enough when respect is missing." The words resonated with every viewer, capturing the universal struggle of balancing love, expectation, and self-worth. Kirk's shoulders slumped, the weight of her words pressing down on him like a physical force. Mendeecees, sensing the gravity of the moment, added one final statement that set the tone for what was yet to come. "Rasheeda, you deserve better, and nothing less than that will ever be enough." The energy in the room shifted. Allies and critics alike paused, reflecting on the raw, unfiltered truth that had just been laid bare. Social media erupted, discussions ignited, and the drama, though momentarily paused, was far from over. The stage was set, the players positioned, and the unfolding story promised twists, heartbreak, confrontations, and perhaps, redemption. Every eye remained fixed on the scene, every heart beating in anticipation, knowing that what came next would change everything. The room was thick with tension as silence stretched for a moment, broken only by the soft hum of the cameras and the faint rustle of the crew shifting in their seats. Kirk's face was pale, a mixture of frustration, embarrassment, and a dawning realization settling over him. He opened his mouth, clearly ready to respond, yet the words caught in his throat. Mendeecees, sensing the vulnerability, pressed forward. "Kirk, this isn't about blame anymore. It's about accountability. It's about recognizing that Rasheeda has been the one keeping the foundation together while you've been preoccupied with appearances and ego. She's not asking for perfections, she's asking for presence, respect, and honesty." Rasheeda's eyes softened at the words, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her lips. She had longed for this acknowledgement, and now that it was here, it felt almost surreal. Friends and family, previously silent, began to voice their perspectives, each adding layers of drama to an already explosive scene. "We've all seen it," one cousin said, leaning forward earnestly. "She's the glue. She's the one who wakes up worrying, who handles the crises, who sacrifices herself for the sake of peace in this family. And what does she get in return? Frustration, broken promises, and excuses." The audience reacted instantly, some clapping softly, others gasping at the rawness of the words. Fans at home took to social media, the comments section lighting up with support for Rasheeda, shock at Kirk's reaction, and debates over loyalty, love, and responsibility. The tension in the studio was mirrored online, creating a cultural storm that seemed impossible to contain. Kirk finally spoke, voice tight and defensive. "You don't know what I've been dealing with," he snapped, gesturing vaguely at the room. "I've tried to balance work, family, and all of this, and I still get criticized." Mendeecees shook his head slowly, his expression unreadable, yet undeniably firm. "Trying isn't enough, Kirk. You've had years to show that you understand her, to act in ways that honor her sacrifices. Words won't fix what actions have neglected. Rasheeda deserves more than empty attempts. She deserves a partner who sees her as the person who keeps everything together, not just someone who exists in the background while she carries the weight of the world." Rasheeda's composure began to crack, though her expression remained dignified. She inhaled sharply, glancing at Kirk with a mixture of sorrow and relief. "I've been silent for so long," she admitted, voice quivering. "I've endured so much because I believed in us, because I wanted to make it work. But sometimes, silence isn't strength, it's exhaustion. I can't keep carrying this alone." The admission hit the room like a tidal wave. Even viewers at home could feel the gravity of the moment, sensing the culmination of years of unspoken tension and unacknowledged effort. As the dialogue continued, the drama escalated with personal revelations and emotional confrontations. Mendeecees shared stories of private conversations he had witnessed, moments that highlighted Kirk's neglect and Rasheeda's resilience. "There were nights she cried herself to sleep because she felt unseen," he said, voice low but unwavering. "She sacrificed her happiness to keep the peace, to support the family, to maintain a semblance of stability. And Kirk, if you can't see that, if you can't act on that, then you're failing the one person who has never failed you." The audience was captivated, every word building tension, every pause heavy with implication. Unexpectedly, one of Rasheeda's close friends stood up, her voice cutting through the murmurs in the studio. "We've all tried to support him, to give him the benefit of the doubt, but it's been years, and Rasheeda has been the one constantly stepping up. We cannot ignore the truth anymore. She deserves to be celebrated, not silenced." The words ignited a flurry of reactions, some applauding, others gasping, and the fans online erupting in hashtags and heated debates. The scene felt almost cinematic. The perfect storm of confrontation, revelation, and raw emotion, unfolding live for millions to witness. Kirk, increasingly agitated, began pacing slightly, his frustration palpable. "I've done my best," he shouted, voice rising. "I work hard, I provide, but Mendeecees' gaze pinned him in place, unmoving and unwavering. Providing isn't the same as understanding, Kirk. Effort without recognition, without empathy, without action, is hollow. Rasheeda has given more than you realize, and she deserves to be met with equal commitment, not just words." The force of the statement left Kirk momentarily speechless, his defenses cracking under the intensity of public scrutiny and personal accountability. The conversation veered into deeper territory, exploring not just the relationship between Kirk and Rasheeda but the ripple effects on their children, extended family, and circle of friends. "This isn't just about two adults," Mendeecees said, his tone grave. "It's about the energy, the environment, the emotional legacy being passed down. When Rasheeda suffers, the family feels it. When Kirk remains blind, the strain intensifies. This is bigger than personal feelings, it's about the entire ecosystem of people around them." Rasheeda nodded, the truth in the statement resonating with her own experiences. Her friends, who had long witnessed the silent struggles, murmured in agreement, reinforcing the narrative of emotional labor and overlooked sacrifice. Kirk attempted to counter, but his words faltered under the weight of evidence and emotion. I thought I was enough," he admitted, voice barely audible. The confession was met with silence, a pause so loaded it felt as though the entire studio held its breath. Mendeecees leaned forward, tone softer but no less firm. "Enough isn't measured by intention, Kirk. It's measured by impact, by action, by whether the person you love feels truly seen and valued. Rasheeda deserves someone who embodies that, someone who doesn't take her strength for granted." The intensity continued to build as family members contributed anecdotes, each adding another layer to the complex narrative of loyalty, frustration, and love. Stories emerged of Rasheeda staying up late, handling crises, managing disagreements, and supporting others while her own needs were neglected. Fans watching at home reacted viscerally, many expressing outrage on behalf of Rasheeda, others reflecting on their own experiences with imbalance in relationships. The studio became a microcosm of these debates, emotions running high, the atmosphere thick with anticipation and unresolved tension. Even small interactions added to the drama. Rasheeda's hands trembled slightly as she brushed a strand of hair from her face, her composure straining under the weight of public acknowledgement and personal catharsis. Kirk's body language shifted, the initial defensiveness giving way to visible discomfort and introspection. Friends whispered among themselves, some offering quiet support to Rasheeda, others attempting to mediate, knowing that every reaction would be scrutinized, every gesture analyzed by millions of viewers. As the conversation drew on, Mendeecees delivered another blow, recounting moments when Kirk had failed to notice Rasheeda's emotional needs, times when he prioritized appearances or ego over empathy and understanding. "Love isn't a checklist," he said, voice resonant and authoritative. "It's not about gestures or words alone. It's about presence, awareness, and commitment to the well-being of the person you claim to love. Rasheeda has carried so much, and if you can't meet her where she is, then she deserves someone who can." The words hit hard, the gravity of the moment leaving Kirk visibly shaken. Rasheeda quietly vindicated, and the audience in rapt attention, waiting for the next twist in the unfolding saga. Fans were reacting instantly, hashtags trending across multiple platforms, debates raging, and speculation about Kirk's next move exploding online. Every eye in the studio was fixed on the scene, every ear straining to catch the nuances, every heart beating in sync with the emotional tension. The story had escalated beyond a personal confrontation, it had become a collective spectacle, a cultural event, a lesson in loyalty, recognition, and the emotional cost of neglect. Even as the confrontation seemed to reach a crescendo, Mendeecees pressed forward, revealing yet more details of the emotional toll Rasheeda had endured. "She's been patient, she's been forgiving, she's been strong in ways that go unseen," he said, "and all of that strength deserves to be honored, not dismissed. Kirk, it's time to acknowledge the reality. Rasheeda deserves better than what you've been giving." Rasheeda's composure cracked momentarily, a tear slipping down her cheek, and the room collectively exhaled, the emotion almost unbearable. Kirk's eyes widened, a mixture of guilt, shame, and dawning understanding flooding his expression. The room remained electric with tension, the drama far from over, but one thing was clear: The narrative had shifted. Rasheeda's worth had been acknowledged, her sacrifices validated, and the dynamics of the relationship laid bare for everyone to witness. Fans, friends, and family alike were on edge, eager to see how the next chapter would unfold, how Kirk would respond, and what repercussions these revelations would have on the tangled web of love, loyalty, and public scrutiny. The studio was still not flinch. Providing is only part of the equation. Kirk, he said, voice calm but penetrating. Presence, empathy, respect, understanding, these are the things that matter most. Actions speak louder than words or money. Rasheeda has carried more than anyone should ever have to, and if you can't meet her where she is, then you're failing her. The intensity grew as friends added their voices, recounting private moments that highlighted Rasheeda's strength and Kirk's inconsistencies. She has been the backbone, one friend stated, handling crises, comforting others, sacrificing her own needs all while maintaining grace and composure. And Kirk, he's been reactive, defensive, and sometimes blind to what's truly important. Rasheeda's expression softened with gratitude, a subtle acknowledgement that she was finally being seen. While Kirk's features tightened, revealing the internal battle raging beneath the surface, Mendeecees shifted the focus to the broader implications, speaking not just to the relationship but to its impact on their children, extended family, and community. This isn't just about two people, he said, it's about the energy, the environment, the emotional example being set. When Rasheeda suffers, the ripples extend outward. When Kirk remains blind, the tension and strain affect everyone. Love isn't just about intentions, it's about tangible impact. And Rasheeda deserves someone who can make a positive, lasting impact on her life. Kirk tried again, his voice faltering but defiant. I thought I was enough. I thought I was doing what mattered, he admitted, though there was an undeniable tremor in his tone. Mendeecees' gaze was unyielding. Kirk, it's not about thought, it's about action. Intentions without recognition, without follow-through, without accountability, are meaningless. Rasheeda has been giving consistently, patiently, and lovingly. Can you say the same? Can you rise to the level she deserves? The words hung in the air, a challenge, a mirror, and a wake-up call all at once. The audience in the studio reacted instantly. Gasps, murmurs, and whispers filled the room. Even the crew, trained to remain neutral, exchanged knowing glances. Every eye was on the unfolding drama, every ear attuned to the charged words. Fans at home were relentless, posting live reactions, commentary, and opinions, amplifying the intensity of the moment beyond the studio walls. Hashtags trended within minutes, debates erupted, and social media became a stage for viewers to weigh in on a confrontation that was now as much a cultural phenomenon as a personal revelation. Rasheeda, gathering her composure, added another layer of depth to the unfolding drama. I've stayed strong, I've been patient, and I've tried to communicate, she said, voice steady but laced with emotion. But strength without acknowledgement, patience without reciprocity, and communication without response eventually lead to exhaustion. I am human, I have limits, and I deserve to be seen, valued, and loved in ways that reflect the effort and sacrifice I've put in. The room seemed to collectively inhale at the weight of her words. Even Kirk, whose defensiveness had dominated the early part of the conversation, appeared struck, his eyes betraying a mixture of guilt and dawning comprehension. Mendeecees seized the moment to deliver another powerful insight, drawing on both his knowledge of the family dynamic and the larger picture of emotional health. Kirk, it's not about blame, it's about clarity. You've had countless chances to recognize her, support her, and honor her. Failure to do so is not only a reflection on your partnership but on the entire emotional ecosystem surrounding you. Rasheeda's strength has been the glue, and if you cannot meet her in equal measure, the foundation is at risk. She deserves better than neglect, disguised as love. Friends and relatives, emboldened by Mendeecees' words, began sharing their own perspectives. Stories surfaced about late nights Rasheeda spent worrying about Kirk's actions, instances where she had mediated conflicts, and moments when she had set aside her own needs for the greater good. Each anecdote was another layer in the dramatic narrative, painting a vivid picture of endurance, love, and overlooked effort. Fans online absorbed every detail, flooding social media with reactions ranging from outrage on Kirk's behalf to unwavering support for Rasheeda, creating a cultural conversation that was impossible to ignore. The confrontation continued to escalate, moving beyond accountability into the realm of raw emotion and personal revelation. Rasheeda, speaking directly to Kirk, conveyed the depth of her feelings. I've stayed silent, I've endured, and I've hoped for change, she said. But hope alone cannot replace action. I need to be met with respect, understanding, and true partnership. That is not too much to ask, and I will not settle for less." The words reverberated through the room, the gravity undeniable. Kirk's attempt at defense faltered under the weight of undeniable truth. I didn't see it," he whispered, almost inaudibly. Mendeecees, unrelenting but fair, leaned in closer. "Then see it now. The time for excuses is over. The time for recognition, respect, and real action has arrived. Rasheeda deserves someone who truly acknowledges her, who meets her needs, and who actively contributes to the partnership in ways that matter." The tension reached an almost unbearable height as everyone in the room processed the revelations. Fans, friends, and family alike were captivated, unable to look away, caught in the whirlwind of confession, confrontation, and catharsis. The narrative had escalated beyond simple relationship drama into a complex exploration of human emotion, loyalty, accountability, and the consequences of neglect. Every pause, every glance, every subtle gesture carried immense weight, and the collective audience felt the intensity ripple through them in real time. Rasheeda, taking a deep breath, finally allowed herself a small, yet powerful smile. It was a fleeting acknowledgement of the support, validation, and recognition she had longed for, the kind that few words could ever fully capture. Kirk's expression, however, remained conflicted, a mixture of introspection, frustration, and realization, as the weight of the conversation began to settle over him. Mendeecees, seeing the moment's gravity, summarized the situation with calm authority. "This is the turning point. It's not about who is right or wrong, it's about what Rasheeda deserves and whether Kirk is willing to rise to the occasion. The truth is clear, she deserves better, and it's time for action to reflect that truth." Fans erupted online, discussions, debates, and speculation flooding every platform. Comments praised Rasheeda's strength, questioned Kirk's accountability, and predicted potential outcomes. The drama, though momentarily paused, was far from over. What would Kirk do next? Could he rise to meet the standard Rasheeda deserved, or would this confrontation mark a permanent shift in their relationship dynamic? The questions hung in the air, unanswered but charged with anticipation, as the stage was set for the next act in an unfolding saga that had already captivated millions. The tension in the room didn't dissipate. If anything, it thickened, curling around every word, every glance, every breath. Kirk's shoulders were stiff, his fingers tapping nervously against his leg, while Rasheeda's expression reflected a mixture of guarded relief and simmering strength. Mendeecees, standing as the unofficial voice of reason and unflinching honesty, leaned slightly forward, emphasizing every word. "Kirk, this isn't theoretical anymore," he said, voice steady but intense. "This isn't something we can just talk about and forget. Rasheeda's patience, her strength, her love, it isn't endless. You've had chances to rise to the occasion, to show that you see her, respect her, and value her. You've failed to consistently do that, and it's time for accountability." The room seemed to hold its breath. Friends and family who had remained on the sidelines until now exchanged knowing looks, understanding the weight of the moment. One of Rasheeda's sisters spoke up, voice trembling with emotion. "We've all seen it. She's been the glue, keeping everyone together, smoothing over every problem, enduring so much. And yet her needs, her pain, her exhaustion, it's all been invisible to you. And it hurts to see someone so strong be overlooked." Kirk. The words landed like stones in a quiet pond, rippling across the space, stirring reactions from everyone present. Cameras captured every flicker of expression, the tension, the discomfort, the dawning realization. Kirk's mouth opened and closed several times, a struggle evident in his attempt to respond. I didn't realize. I thought I was." His words faltered, swallowed by the magnitude of what had been laid bare. Mendeecees shook his head slightly, signaling both disappointment and resolve. "Intentions are not enough. Words are not enough. She has lived this reality, she has carried this weight. And what she needs is someone whose actions reflect their love, whose presence reflects their respect, whose commitment matches her sacrifice." The cameras caught Rasheeda's subtle reaction, a soft exhale, the faintest shift in her posture that betrayed both relief and lingering tension. For years she had carried the burden of compromise, of quiet endurance, and now, here it was, someone not just acknowledging, but articulating the injustice she had quietly borne. Her friends leaned in, offering silent support, while family members nodded in recognition. The room was alive with charged energy, each participant acutely aware that a public reckoning had arrived. As the conversation deepened, Mendeecees revisited specific moments from the couple's history, painting vivid pictures of unseen struggles. There were nights she stayed awake worrying about the choices. The arguments, the fights that could have been avoided if communication had been real. She has sacrificed her own comfort, her own peace, for the sake of everyone else, and yet, how often has she been recognized? Rasheeda's eyes glistened, a tear threatening to fall. Fans watching at home reacted immediately, sending thousands of comments and emojis, flooding social media with expressions of shock, support, and disbelief. Kirk, now visibly uncomfortable, leaned back in his chair. His voice wavered. I've tried. I've really tried to show her. I thought I was. His sentence trailed off, swallowed by the silence that followed Mendeecees' piercing stare. Trying isn't enough, Kirk Mendeecees said sharply. It's never been enough if it doesn't meet the level she deserves. She doesn't need half-hearted efforts. She doesn't need excuses, and she doesn't need gestures that are empty without follow-through. She deserves better. The tension rippled through the room. Friends who had observed quietly until now began sharing their own observations. We've all watched her carry more than her share. One longtime friend interjected. The emotional labor, the late nights, the compromises, the patience, it's been endless. Kirk, you can't just say you tried. She needs to be seen, she needs to be supported, and she needs consistency. That is what she deserves. Fans online immediately picked up on the exchange. Clips circulated rapidly, igniting a firestorm of discussion. Comments ranged from outrage accusing Kirk of negligence and lack of awareness to admiration for Rasheeda's enduring strength and composure. Viewers debated endlessly. Could Kirk change? Would Rasheeda finally step back from giving more than she should? Was this the tipping point that would alter the trajectory of their relationship? The drama had moved beyond entertainment. It had become a collective experience. Unfolding in real time across millions of screens, Rasheeda, emboldened by the support and validation, spoke again. I've held on for too long, not because I wanted to, but because I believed in us, she said, voice steady but layered with emotion. I've endured the silence, the frustration, the neglect, hoping that one day, actions would match words. I've given everything I could, and yet, there were times when it wasn't enough. I'm strong, yes, but strength isn't endless. I need acknowledgement, respect, and commitment. I need someone who sees me, really sees me, and responds with the love I deserve. The cameras captured every nuance, the tremor in her hands, the slight glimmer of tears, the subtle exhale of someone who has been heard after years of silence. Kirk shifted uncomfortably, the reality of the situation pressing heavily upon him. His defenses, once so rigid, began to crack. I didn't see how much you've been carrying, he admitted, voice low. I thought I was doing enough. Mendeecees leaned in, voice firm, commanding attention. Enough isn't measured by intention, Kirk. It's measured by impact, by whether your partner feels valued, supported, and loved in ways that truly matter. Rasheeda has been clear about what she needs. The question now is, can you rise to meet it? The room was tense with anticipation. Every eye was on Kirk, waiting for his response. Every breath felt heavy with expectation. Friends whispered quietly, offering insight, encouragement, or critique. Family members watched silently, the weight of years of observation and concern reflected in their faces. Social media exploded in real-time commentary, viewers dissecting every pause, every glance, every subtle gesture, weighing in with opinions, advice, and predictions. Kirk's shoulders slumped slightly as the truth of the situation fully sank in. His voice softened, more introspective now than defensive. I see how much you've given, and how little I've recognized it. His admission hung in the air, heavy with both regret and a glimmer of possibility. Mendeecees nodded, a subtle acknowledgement that the seed of change had been planted, though the road ahead remained uncertain. Rasheeda allowed herself a small, cautious smile, sensing the shift, though she remained guarded. Acknowledgement is the first step, she said softly, but it must be followed by action. Words alone are not enough. I've waited long enough to see change. Now is the moment. The room remained charged, the energy palpable. Every participant acutely aware that this confrontation had changed the narrative. Friends and family contributed further perspectives, emphasizing the importance of consistency, emotional awareness, and mutual respect. It's not just about fixing things for a day, one cousin said. It's about a long-term commitment to see her, support her, and honor her consistently. That's the standard she deserves, nothing less. Fans at home, watching intently, continued to react passionately. Clips went viral, tweets exploded, and debates raged on, amplifying the drama beyond the studio. The story had transcended its immediate context, becoming a cultural moment about recognition, respect, and the emotional labor often overlooked in relationships. As the tension persisted, Rasheeda's voice took on a final, resolute tone for the moment. I've given, I've waited, and I've endured. Now it's time for actions to reflect the love, respect, and acknowledgement I've deserved all along. The words were met with a collective hush, every eye on Kirk, every mind racing with speculation about what he would do next, what choices lay ahead, and whether this confrontation would ultimately reshape their relationship forever. The drama had reached another peak, but it was clear the story was far from over. The energy in the room, the reactions of friends, family, and fans, and the high stakes of emotional accountability ensured that the next chapter would be as riveting, explosive, and unforgettable as everything that had come before. The narrative had shifted, the lines had been drawn, and the audience was left waiting with bated breath, eager for the next turn in this dramatic, emotional saga. The air in the studio was thick with anticipation as the conversation continued to unfold. Kirk, still grappling with the intensity of Mendeecees' words, ran a hand over his face, visibly conflicted. Rasheeda, meanwhile, seemed to find a new layer of strength in the acknowledgement she had just received. The shift in energy was palpable. The balance of power in the room had subtly changed, and everyone present could sense it. Mendeecees leaned forward, his voice carrying a mixture of authority and concern. Kirk, it's not just about tonight or this conversation, he said, eyes locked on him. It's about every moment you've overlooked her sacrifices. Every time you failed to act when she needed support, every instance where words replaced genuine presence. Rasheeda deserves more than just acknowledgement. She deserves consistent respect and unwavering partnership. That's the standard, and it's time to face it. The room fell silent as the weight of the statement sank in. Friends and family, who had been quietly observing, now spoke up, adding layers of intensity to the unfolding drama. One close friend of Rasheeda's interjected, her voice trembling with emotion. We've all seen it. She's been the glue holding everything together, and yet her needs have been invisible. Kirk, if you can't meet her where she is emotionally, you're failing not just her, but everyone who relies on the strength she provides. The words landed heavily, striking a nerve not only with Kirk but also with everyone watching. Kirk opened his mouth, then closed it again, struggling to find the right words. I thought I was doing enough, he admitted quietly, voice tinged with vulnerability. Mendeecees shook his head, his gaze unwavering. Enough is measured by impact, Kirk, by whether she feels truly seen, supported, and loved. Rasheeda has lived this reality. She has carried this weight. It's time to rise to meet it. Rasheeda's expression softened slightly, though her eyes remained sharp and resolute. I've endured, I've waited, and I've hoped for change, she said, her voice steady despite the emotion underlying it. But hope without action is just patience running out. I need to be met with consistency, respect, and genuine love. That is not too much to ask. The conversation became even more charged as other family members began recounting examples of Kirk's past negligence, juxtaposed with Rasheeda's unwavering support and emotional labor. Stories surfaced about nights she had stayed awake worrying about crises, mediating conflicts, and putting others' needs before her own. Each anecdote painted a vivid picture of her resilience and dedication, while simultaneously highlighting Kirk's repeated oversights. Fans at home were quick to respond, flooding social media with comments and hashtags, debating Kirk's accountability and celebrating Rasheeda's strength. Kirk, growing increasingly uncomfortable under the scrutiny, attempted to explain himself. I've tried to support her, he said, voice cracking. I work hard, I provide, and I thought that was enough. Mendeecees.com, but unyielding, responded sharply. Providing materially is only part of the equation. Presence, empathy, and emotional support are equally, if not more, important. Rasheeda has been carrying this relationship in ways you haven't acknowledged, and that needs to change now. The tension in the room escalated as emotions ran high. Rasheeda's friends added their perspectives, emphasizing the importance of emotional labor and the long-term effects of neglect. She's been patient and forgiving for years, one friend said. But patience isn't infinite. Respect isn't optional. If Kirk doesn't rise to the occasion, the consequences affect everyone around them, the children, the family, the friends. Emotional health is at stake here. Fans online were reacting just as passionately. Tweets and comments poured in by the thousands, some expressing outrage at Kirk's behavior, others offering unwavering support for Rasheeda, and many debating the intricacies of love, commitment, and emotional labor. The drama had grown beyond the confines of the studio, becoming a cultural moment that resonated with audiences far and wide. Rasheeda, emboldened by the validation, continued to speak. I've stayed strong, I've communicated my needs, and I've been patient, she said. But strength without recognition, patience without reciprocity, and communication without response eventually lead to exhaustion. I am human. I have limits. I deserve acknowledgement, respect, and consistent love. Anything less is not acceptable. Kirk's defenses began to crumble under the weight of the conversation. I didn't realize the extent, he admitted softly. I didn't see how much you've been carrying all these years. Mendeecees leaned in, his tone sharp and commanding. Then see it now. Recognition without action is meaningless. Rasheeda needs to feel seen every day, supported in every way, and loved genuinely. That's the standard. Kirk, can you meet it? The room held its collective breath. Friends and family watched closely, knowing the gravity of the moment. Social media erupted, with fans dissecting every expression, gesture, and word. Speculation ran rampant. Would Kirk rise to the occasion? Could Rasheeda finally receive the partnership she deserved? The stakes were higher than ever, the drama intensifying with each passing moment. Rasheeda, taking a measured breath, allowed herself a faint, cautious smile. Acknowledgement is only the first step, she said. Actions must follow. I've waited long enough to see change. Now it's time for the reality to match the words. Mendeecees, sensing the delicate balance of the moment, emphasized the importance of accountability and consistency. This is a turning point, he said firmly. It's not about blame, it's about understanding, growth, and the willingness to meet the level of commitment Rasheeda deserves. The choice is clear. Rise to meet her, or risk losing not only her trust but the stability of the relationship itself. The intensity did not subside. Friends, family, and viewers remained glued to every detail, the stakes amplified by the raw honesty and emotional exposure unfolding before them. The story had transcended a simple relationship conflict. It had become a testament to resilience, emotional labor, and the imperative of recognizing and valuing the people who hold us together. Kirk, reflecting on the weight of the moment, finally softened, his voice low but sincere. I see it now. I see all that you've given, all that I've overlooked. I want to do better. I want to show you that I can be the partner you deserve. Rasheeda's eyes met his, searching for authenticity. The room was tense with anticipation, every person aware that this could be the pivotal moment, the instant that defined whether change would truly take root or if history would repeat itself. Friends and family watched silently, knowing that the next words, the next actions, would determine the trajectory of the relationship and the emotional landscape for everyone involved. The energy remained electric, the stakes impossibly high, as the confrontation continued to unfold. The drama was far from over, but one thing was certain: Rasheeda's strength had been recognized, her sacrifices validated, and the dynamic between her and Kirk had been irreversibly shifted. Fans online continued to react passionately, and the story was now firmly cemented in the public consciousness as one of emotional reckoning, accountability, and the relentless pursuit of respect and genuine love. The room remained electric, every word, every glance, every pause carrying the weight of years of suppressed emotions and unspoken truths. Kirk's admission had opened the door, yet the journey ahead was far from simple. Rasheeda, sensing both the potential for genuine change and the risk of disappointment, took a slow, deliberate breath, letting the gravity of the moment settle into the space around them. I appreciate your words, Kirk, she said quietly, voice steady but laden with emotion. But words without follow-through have always been the problem. I've heard promises, declarations, and apologies countless times. Now I need to see consistency, real, tangible change in your actions, not just your speech. Her tone was calm but firm, the kind of controlled intensity that commanded attention and demanded respect. Mendeecees, observing closely, nodded slightly, knowing the conversation had reached a pivotal point, one that could either mend fractures or deepen them irreparably. Kirk's posture stiffened, a mixture of defensiveness and realization etching across his features. He leaned back, exhaling slowly, as if trying to process the magnitude of what had just been said. I understand, he murmured, almost to himself. I see now how much I've overlooked, how blind I've been to your struggles, your sacrifices, everything you've carried silently on your shoulders while I failed to notice or appreciate it. I thought I was doing enough, but I see that it's not enough. It hasn't been enough. His voice broke slightly, betraying a vulnerability rarely displayed in public. And the cameras captured every subtle change in expression, the flicker of shame, the hint of remorse, the glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, this could be a turning point. The atmosphere shifted as Rasheeda leaned forward, eyes locked on his, measuring the sincerity behind his words. Acknowledgement is necessary, she said, but it's just the beginning. I need to feel the change in your actions, in the way you show up for me consistently, in the way you support me, in the way you recognize my worth not only when the cameras are on, but in every moment when no one is watching. Her words were precise, deliberate, and weighted with the authority of lived experience. The room, once tense with confrontation, now held a charged quiet, as friends, family, and viewers at home waited for Kirk's next move, understanding that the stakes were no longer theoretical, they were deeply personal and irrevocably real. Kirk's hands fidgeted in his lap as he tried to reconcile his intentions with the reality laid before him. I want to do better, he said finally, voice low but determined. I want to be present in the way you deserve, to support you in ways that I haven't before, to recognize every sacrifice, every effort, every moment you've carried us all forward. I see it now, Rasheeda. I see you, really see you, and I don't want to fail you anymore. His admission was raw. The kind of unfiltered honesty that comes only after layers of ego and denial have been stripped away by confrontation and truth. The room held its breath, sensing the fragility of the moment and the potential for both healing and heartbreak. Mendeecees, sensing an opportunity to solidify the shift in dynamics, leaned in. Kirk, he said, voice measured but firm, seeing her is just the start. You must prove it, daily, in ways that matter. It's about accountability, commitment, and emotional presence. Words without action are hollow. She deserves tangible change, not just lip service. Rasheeda nodded slightly, a subtle acknowledgement that she was holding him accountable, not only for his intentions but for the real-world impact of his behavior. Friends and family. Foundation for future confrontations, reconciliations, and revelations. Kirk's willingness to acknowledge his shortcomings, Rasheeda's steadfast insistence on being valued, and the unflinching guidance of Mendeecees had combined to produce a moment of raw, unfiltered truth. Fans online were electrified, comments and theories flooding every platform, each reaction amplifying the intensity and extending the narrative far beyond the walls of the studio. As the cameras continued rolling, the narrative of accountability, love, and emotional labor remained center stage. The story was far from complete, yet one truth was undeniable: Rasheeda's strength had been validated, Kirk's awareness had been challenged, and the journey toward authentic partnership had begun. The tension, drama, and anticipation were now woven into the very fabric of their lives, and the world was watching every step, every choice, every action that would determine whether this saga would end in redemption, transformation, or heartbreak. The room, still heavy with emotion, bore witness to a pivotal chapter in the ongoing story of love, accountability, and resilience. Rasheeda, having reclaimed her voice and her power, and Kirk, confronted with the magnitude of his shortcomings, stood at the precipice of change. Friends, family, and fans alike waited, hearts racing, minds analyzing, for the next move in a drama that had become a cultural phenomenon, one that blended raw truth, emotional intensity, and the timeless struggle to be seen, respected, and genuinely loved. The intensity in the room was far from dissipating. It had evolved into a tense, simmering undercurrent that wrapped around every word, every gesture, every glance exchanged between Rasheeda and Kirk. Mendeecees, sensing the delicate balance, remained poised, his eyes sharp, weighing each reaction, reading every subtle shift in posture and expression. The moment had become bigger than the immediate conversation. It had grown into a psychological battlefield, a testing ground for vulnerability, accountability, and the raw truth of human emotion. Rasheeda, sitting upright, shoulders squared but exuding a calm intensity, locked eyes with Kirk. She had reached the point where patience met assertion, where quiet endurance demanded recognition, and where the stakes were now higher than ever. Kirk, she began, her voice steady but firm. I have given, I have waited, and I have sacrificed. I have tried to navigate this relationship with understanding and resilience. But understanding without reciprocity, resilience without acknowledgement, is not enough. I need to see real change, not just in moments like this, but consistently, in ways that show respect, presence, and genuine love. I deserve no less. Kirk, visibly weighed down by the gravity of her words, leaned forward slightly, rubbing his hands across his face as if trying to wipe away the accumulated reality of his oversights. I hear you, he murmured, voice low but tinged with a growing awareness. I realize now, more than ever, that what I thought was enough was nowhere near what you deserved. I thought I was showing support. I thought I was present, but I see now how blind I've been. I want to do better. I need to do better, and I am willing to put in the work to prove it. His words were tentative, but beneath the surface lingered a flicker of raw sincerity that neither friends nor family could ignore. The cameras captured every nuance, the slight tremble of his hands, the way his shoulders slumped with the weight of recognition, the vulnerability in his eyes that contrasted starkly with his usual composure. Mendeecees leaned slightly forward, his tone commanding yet tempered with a mentor's wisdom. "Kirk, this isn't just about tonight or one confrontation," he said, voice steady but intense. "It's about the entirety of your actions leading up to this moment, and how you choose to proceed moving forward. Words matter, but actions define reality. If you want to rise to meet her, you must consistently show up emotionally, mentally, and physically. She deserves nothing less than consistency and unwavering support." The room seemed to pulse with the weight of the message. Friends and family, who had previously observed quietly, now began to nod, murmuring in agreement, affirming the truth in Mendeecees' words. Every listener understood the stakes. The path forward was demanding, non-negotiable, and intimately tied to the respect and acknowledgement Rasheeda had long been owed. Rasheeda's gaze softened slightly, though the intensity remained. She recognized the vulnerability in Kirk, the tentative step toward self-awareness, but she was not yet ready to fully trust that awareness would translate into meaningful change. "I see that you are starting to understand," she said, her tone measured, "but seeing is only the beginning. I need proof, Kirk. I need to witness your commitment in moments both large and small, when no one is watching, when it's inconvenient, when it challenges you to rise above comfort and self-interest. That is how I know whether change is real or performative." Her words reverberated through the room, hitting a chord of truth that extended beyond the couple, touching everyone present, and by extension, millions of viewers who were already engrossed in the unfolding drama. Kirk swallowed hard, his voice barely above a whisper. I understand. I see now how much I've overlooked, how often I've failed to act in ways that matter. I want to be the partner you deserve, to meet you where you are, to honor every sacrifice you've made. I am committed to making this right, not just for show, but in every possible way, every day." The vulnerability in his tone was raw, unpolished, yet undeniably genuine. He was no longer defending himself, no longer attempting to justify past behaviors. He was simply confronting the reality of his failures and expressing a willingness to change. Friends and family, sensing the pivotal moment, began to share their perspectives, layering the conversation with personal anecdotes that highlighted Rasheeda's enduring patience and the repeated patterns of Kirk's oversight. "She's been the backbone for years," one longtime friend said, voice quivering with emotion. "Late nights, emotional crises, family tensions, you name it. She has carried more than anyone should." Kirk, if you truly want to rise to the occasion, you have to acknowledge all of that and actively participate in creating balance, respect, and partnership. Anything less isn't acceptable. The room collectively absorbed the weight of the statement, the emotional gravity palpable in every silence between words, every nod of agreement, every subtle glance toward Rasheeda. Rasheeda, emboldened by both validation and the shared narratives of those closest to her, continued, "I've endured challenges, misunderstandings, and moments where my contributions were invisible. I've communicated my needs repeatedly, yet consistency has been lacking. I am strong, yes, but strength has its limits. I am not here to be the sole caretaker of emotional labor. I need reciprocity, recognition, and a tangible demonstration of commitment. Only then can trust, respect, and love flourish fully." The words hung in the air like a gauntlet thrown, daring Kirk to rise, compelling him to confront his own actions with honesty and accountability. Kirk's response was measured but laced with urgency. I see it now. Every oversight, every failure to recognize your contributions, every moment I let you carry alone. I understand the impact. I can't change the past, but I can commit to a future where my actions reflect my recognition, respect, and love for you. I am ready to put in the work, to be accountable, and to show up consistently in ways that truly matter. His gaze met hers directly, an unspoken plea for both trust and a chance to prove his sincerity. The conversation deepened, turning to specific instances where Kirk's neglect had tangible consequences on family dynamics, friendships, and emotional well-being. Rasheeda recounted late nights spent managing crises alone, foundation for future confrontations, reconciliations, and revelations. Kirk's willingness to acknowledge his shortcomings, Rasheeda's steadfast insistence on being valued, and the unflinching guidance of Mendeecees had combined to produce a moment of raw, unfiltered truth. Fans online were electrified, comments and theories flooding every platform, each reaction amplifying the intensity and extending the narrative far beyond the walls of the studio. As the cameras continued rolling, the narrative of accountability, love, and emotional labor remained center stage. The story was far from complete, yet one truth was undeniable: Rasheeda's strength had been validated, Kirk's awareness had been challenged, and the journey toward authentic partnership had begun. The tension, drama, and anticipation were now woven into the very fabric of their lives, and the world was watching every step, every choice, every action that would determine whether this saga would end in redemption, transformation, or heartbreak. The room, still heavy with emotion, bore witness to a pivotal chapter in the ongoing story of love, accountability, and resilience. Rasheeda, having reclaimed her voice and her power, and Kirk, confronted with the magnitude of his shortcomings, stood at the precipice of change. Friends, family, and fans alike waited, hearts racing, minds analyzing, for the next move in a drama that had become a cultural phenomenon, one that blended raw truth, emotional intensity, and the timeless struggle to be seen, respected, and genuinely loved. The intensity in the room was far from dissipating. It had evolved into a tense, simmering undercurrent that wrapped around every word, every gesture, every glance exchanged between Rasheeda and Kirk. Mendeecees, sensing the delicate balance, remained poised, his eyes sharp, weighing each reaction, reading every subtle shift in posture and expression. The moment had become bigger than the immediate conversation. It had grown into a psychological battlefield, a testing ground for vulnerability, accountability, and the raw truth of human emotion. Rasheeda, sitting upright, shoulders squared but exuding a calm intensity, locked eyes with Kirk. She had reached the point where patience met assertion, where quiet endurance demanded recognition, and where the stakes were now higher than ever. "Kirk," she began, her voice steady but firm, "I have given, I have waited, and I have sacrificed. I have tried to navigate this relationship with understanding and resilience. But understanding without reciprocity, resilience without acknowledgement, is not enough. I need to see real change, not just in moments like this, but consistently, in ways that show respect, presence, and genuine love. I deserve no less." Kirk, visibly weighed down by the gravity of her words, leaned forward slightly, rubbing his hands across his face as if trying to wipe away the accumulated reality of his oversights. I hear you," he murmured, voice low but tinged with a growing awareness. "I realize now, more than ever, that what I thought was enough was nowhere near what you deserved. I thought I was showing support. I thought I was present, but I see now how blind I've been. I want to do better. I need to do better, and I am willing to put in the work to prove it." His words were tentative, but beneath the surface lingered a flicker of raw sincerity that neither friends nor family could ignore. The cameras captured every nuance: the slight tremble of his hands, the way his shoulders slumped with the weight of recognition, the vulnerability in his eyes that contrasted starkly with his usual composure. Mendeecees leaned slightly forward, his tone commanding yet tempered with a mentor's wisdom. "Kirk, this isn't just about tonight or one confrontation," he said, voice steady but intense. "It's about the entirety of your actions leading up to this moment, and how you choose to proceed moving forward. Words matter, but actions define reality. If you want to rise to meet her, you must consistently show up emotionally, mentally, and physically. She deserves nothing less than consistency and unwavering support." The room seemed to pulse with the weight of the message. Friends and family, who had previously observed quietly, now began to nod, murmuring in agreement, affirming the truth in Mendeecees' words. Every listener understood the stakes. The path forward was demanding, non-negotiable, and intimately tied to the respect and acknowledgement Rasheeda had long been owed. Rasheeda's gaze softened slightly, though the intensity remained. She recognized the vulnerability in Kirk, the tentative step toward self-awareness, but she was not yet ready to fully trust that awareness would translate into meaningful change. "I see that you are starting to understand," she said, her tone measured, "but seeing is only the beginning. I need proof, Kirk. I need to witness your commitment in moments both large and small, when no one is watching, when it's inconvenient, when it challenges you to rise above comfort and self-interest. That is how I know whether change is real or performative." Her words reverberated through the room, hitting a chord of truth that extended beyond the couple, touching everyone present, and by extension, millions of viewers who were already engrossed in the unfolding drama. Kirk swallowed hard, his voice barely above a whisper. I understand. I see now how much I've overlooked, how often I've failed to act in ways that matter. I want to be the partner you deserve, to meet you where you are, to honor every sacrifice you've made. I am committed to making this right, not just for show, but in every possible way, every day." The vulnerability in his tone was raw, unpolished, yet undeniably genuine. He was no longer defending himself, No longer attempting to justify past behaviors, he was simply confronting the reality of his failures and expressing a willingness to change. Friends and family, sensing the pivotal moment, began to share their perspectives, layering the conversation with personal anecdotes that highlighted Rasheeda's enduring patience and the repeated patterns of Kirk's oversight. "She's been the backbone for years," one longtime friend said, voice quivering with emotion. "Late nights, emotional crises, family tensions, you name it. She has carried more than anyone should." Kirk, if you truly want to rise to the occasion, you have to acknowledge all of that and actively participate in creating balance, respect, and partnership. Anything less isn't acceptable. The room collectively absorbed the weight of the statement, the emotional gravity palpable in every silence between words, every nod of agreement, every subtle glance toward Rasheeda. Rasheeda, emboldened by both validation and the shared narratives of those closest to her, continued, "I've endured challenges, misunderstandings, and moments where my contributions were invisible. I've communicated my needs repeatedly, yet consistency has been lacking. I am strong, yes, but strength has its limits. I am not here to be the sole caretaker of emotional labor. I need reciprocity, recognition, and a tangible demonstration of commitment. Only then can trust, respect, and love flourish fully." The words hung in the air like a gauntlet thrown, daring Kirk to rise, compelling him to confront his own actions with honesty and accountability. Kirk's response was measured but laced with urgency. I see it now. Every oversight, every failure to recognize your contributions, every moment I let you carry alone, I understand the impact. I can't change the past, but I can commit to a future where my actions reflect my recognition, respect, and love for you. I am ready to put in the work, to be accountable, and to show up consistently in ways that truly matter. His gaze met hers directly, an unspoken plea for both trust and a chance to prove his sincerity. The conversation deepened, turning to specific instances where Kirk's neglect had tangible consequences on family dynamics, friendships, and emotional well-being. Rasheeda recounted late nights spent managing crises alone, moments of personal sacrifice to maintain stability, and times when her voice went unheard. Friends and family added supporting testimony, each anecdote a reminder of the imbalance that had persisted for years. Viewers at home responded immediately, flooding social media with support for Rasheeda, critiques of Kirk, and speculation about whether genuine change was possible. The narrative had grown beyond the confines of the studio, becoming a public spectacle that resonated deeply with audiences across multiple platforms. Kirk, absorbing the gravity of each story, each reflection, began to visibly shift. His posture softened, his gaze lowered in reflection, and his hands, once fidgeting nervously, now rested still in his lap, as if he were grounding himself against the tidal wave of accountability surrounding him. I can see now the breadth of what I've missed. The weight you've carried silently," he admitted, voice faltering slightly but carrying a newfound gravity. "I want to rise to meet you, to show that I can be present, supportive, and truly committed in every moment, large and small. I am ready to change, to grow, to prove that I can honor you as you deserve." Mendeecees, observing the evolution of the conversation, leaned forward with quiet authority. "Kirk, the acknowledgement is necessary, but it is only a fraction of what is required. Actions, consistently and without hesitation, are the measure of your commitment. You must show up in ways that are visible and invisible, in public and in private, in moments of ease and moments of challenge. Only then will trust, respect, and genuine love be restored and sustained." The words settled heavily, the room thick with tension, reflection, and the unspoken understanding that nothing less than total commitment would suffice. Rasheeda's eyes softened slightly, though her resolve remained unshaken. "I will be watching, noticing, and assessing every action," she said. "Consistency, respect, presence, these are not negotiable. I have waited long enough for change, and now the opportunity has arrived. I am giving you a chance, Kirk, but it is one that demands authenticity, accountability, and a relentless commitment to honor the love and sacrifices that have brought us here." Friends and family collectively exhaled, understanding the delicate balance of the moment. Social media audiences, meanwhile, reacted with fervor, dissecting every micro-expression, every tonal shift, and every gesture captured on camera. Hashtags began trending, clips circulated widely, and debates erupted across platforms. Could Kirk rise to the occasion? Would Rasheeda finally receive the acknowledgement and partnership she had long deserved? The drama had transcended the studio, becoming a cultural touchstone for discussions about emotional labor, accountability, and the complexities of long-term partnerships. The dialogue continued, each layer peeling back further insights, confessions, and vulnerabilities. Kirk, now visibly transformed by the weight of the conversation, admitted past blind spots, detailing moments where he had failed to see Rasheeda's struggles, underestimating her strength and overestimating his own awareness. Rasheeda, in turn, articulated the emotional toll of such neglect, painting a vivid picture of the resilience required to sustain love amidst repeated oversight. Every word was heavy with implication, every glance weighted with unspoken history, every pause pregnant with anticipation for what would come next. Mendeecees, maintaining a careful balance between mediation and insistence, reminded both parties of the stakes. This isn't about performance. This isn't about optics. It's about real, lived change. It's about seeing, honoring, and responding to the full measure of your partner's contributions. Rasheeda has shown immense patience and strength. Now it is up to you, Kirk, to rise fully to meet her. The time for excuses has passed. Kirk, absorbing the finality of the statement, nodded solemnly. I understand, he said, voice low but resolute. I will act, consistently, with integrity, and with full awareness of the sacrifices, love, and patience you have given. I will not take this chance lightly, and I will prove that I can meet you at the level you deserve. Rasheeda, acknowledging the declaration but reserving judgment until actions followed, allowed a faint, cautious smile. Time will tell, she said softly. I am watching, I am noticing, and I am prepared to respond to genuine change. Anything less than the commitment and presence I deserve will not suffice. The room, though momentarily calm, remained charged with residual energy, the tension of accountability, the vulnerability of confession, and the anticipation of transformation. Friends and family remained attentive, the cameras rolling, capturing the nuances that would fuel discussion, debate, and speculation for days, weeks, and months to come. Social media continued to buzz with fervent activity, the saga expanding beyond private confrontation into a shared cultural experience, a story that resonated with anyone who had ever grappled with recognition, emotional labor, and the complex dynamics of partnership. The confrontation, though intense and exhausting, had set the stage for a new chapter, one where accountability, growth, and authentic engagement would determine the future of the relationship. Rasheeda had reclaimed her voice, demanded respect, and articulated her needs with unwavering clarity. Kirk had acknowledged his shortcomings, admitted vulnerability, and committed to change. The journey ahead was fraught with challenges, but the foundation for potential transformation had been laid, witnessed by friends, family, and millions of viewers invested in the drama, the redemption, and the pursuit of genuine love and partnership. The saga continued, unfolding in real time, every word, gesture, and glance now carrying profound implications. The tension, anticipation, and emotional stakes remained high as Rasheeda and Kirk navigated the delicate terrain of acknowledgement, accountability, and authentic connection. Fans remained captivated, discussions raged across platforms, and the story's resonance expanded, touching on universal themes of respect, love, and the long-overlooked labor that sustains relationships. The narrative, though far from resolved, had reached a new level of intensity, promising more revelations, confrontations, and emotional climaxes in the chapters yet to come. Before we wrap up this intense saga, let's take a moment to reflect on everything we just witnessed. Because the story isn't just about Rasheeda and Kirk, it's about all of us, about relationships, accountability, and what it truly means to honor the people we love. If you've been following closely, you know that Rasheeda has shown extraordinary strength, patience, and grace, standing firm in her boundaries while demanding the respect and partnership she deserves. Her voice, once overshadowed by neglect and unacknowledged effort, has finally been heard, and that's something worth celebrating. But the drama doesn't stop at acknowledgement, it's about action, change, and the real-world consequences of ignoring emotional labor. How Kirk responds, moving forward, will determine whether this relationship transforms into something lasting or crumbles under the weight of repeated mistakes. And that, my friends, is where you come in. This story is bigger than just one couple. It's a wake-up call for anyone who has ever been taken for granted, anyone who has felt unseen despite their sacrifices, and anyone who has wondered if true accountability is possible in love and life. We want to hear from you. How would you handle a situation like this? Have you ever been in a position where your efforts went unnoticed, where your patience was tested, or where your partner's promises didn't match their actions? Share your experiences in the comments below. We're building a community that values honesty, emotional awareness, and the courage to confront difficult truths. Your perspective could help someone else navigate similar challenges, and together, we can start conversations that go beyond entertainment and reach into the real, human experiences that resonate with us all. And if you're feeling shocked, inspired, or even a little emotional about Rasheeda's courage, don't just scroll past. Hit that like button to show support not just for this video, but for standing up for yourself and your boundaries in life. Your engagement tells us that these stories matter, that the struggles, the drama, and the triumphs are worth paying attention to. Every like, every comment, every share helps us bring more of these real-life, emotionally charged moments to your screen. The world is watching, and your interaction ensures that voices like Rasheeda's are amplified, heard, and respected. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because the story is far from over. Kirk's journey toward accountability. Rasheeda's ongoing pursuit of respect, and the reactions of family, friends, and fans will continue to unfold in ways that are unpredictable, dramatic, and impossible to ignore. By subscribing, you'll be the first to witness every twist, every confrontation, every moment of revelation and reconciliation as it happens. This isn't just a video, it's an ongoing saga, and being part of our community ensures that you don't miss a single chapter. Finally, we want to leave you with a challenge. Take a moment to reflect on your own relationships, your family connections, your romantic partnerships. Are you showing up in ways that truly honor the people you care about? Are you listening, acknowledging, and acting consistently to demonstrate your love and respect? If not, let this story serve as a reminder that recognition alone is not enough. Action matters, consistency matters, and the courage to confront difficult truths matters more than we often realize. Rasheeda's story is a mirror for all of us, and by engaging with it thoughtfully, you can take steps toward healthier, more balanced, and more respectful relationships in your own life. So, share your thoughts below, like this video if Rasheeda's strength inspired you, and subscribe so you can follow every moment of this ongoing saga. Your voice matters in the conversation, your perspective enriches the dialogue, and your engagement ensures that stories of accountability, courage, and transformation reach a wider audience. Stay tuned, because the next chapter promises even more drama, more revelations, and more moments that will leave fans shocked, emotions running high, and the stakes higher than ever. You don't want to miss it.